Hello and welcome back to Inquisitor Martyr. Last time we kept doing more of the seasonal Void Brethren missions, and we'll do a couple level 2s this time instead of the level 3s. Always want to mix it up and do something a little different instead of just running all level 3s. I could run, 5 of them, but I have tons of level 2s and I might as well burn through them, and I still get a bunch of loot, so it's not that big a deal.
The very existence of this filth defiles the Imperium. They may be great in numbers, but if we sever the head, the body will die. Kill their leaders and break their will.
No, same. And they really have like the same couple tile sets. They don't really mix them up at all. But so, I don't know if it's confirmed, but I saw people talking about Amazon has the rights to the Stargate franchise. Which, on one hand, I'm like, yay, I like Stargate, I would like to see that show come back. But then I also think, they're not that... I don't have a lot of faith in Amazon. They don't have a track record of making good adaptations or good versions of stuff. We've yet to see how this Lord of the Rings series is, but I do worry about that. And I wonder what they would do for Stargate. Because it's not like they're just gonna go, hey, we're gonna, fire back up Stargate Galaxy. Or Stargate Universe. Yeah, Stargate Universe, that's what it was. SGU. It's not like they're gonna fire that up. Which I wish they would, because the show got good once they ended the show. We were sitting there wanting something better for the show and to actually see aliens, and then once they started showing aliens, they're like, oh yeah, we're canceling the show. Which completely just ruined it. They spent, like a season and a half, 2 seasons, just on interpersonal crap that I did not care about. It's like, I'm sorry, I don't care. Show me aliens. Show me cool gunfights and stuff. That's what I'm here for when I'm watching sci-fi shows. Even something like The Expanse, which is arguably very... I would consider it a drama, almost. And it has a lot of interpersonal stuff. It also takes the time to be like, hey, let's put some action in here so nobody's bored. And they do a great job, because I can watch that show. And I did, and I binge-watched it. And I just absolutely loved it. You had slower moments, but they were still interesting. Like the Martian Marine Bobby Draper having to readjust to being discharged, and Mars not really needing as much of a military anymore. And you have those moments, and then they mix it up and they're like, hey, there's this group of weapon smugglers and arms dealers that she runs into and deals with. And you're like, oh cool, something interesting. And they kind of bounce between it, and it keeps everything worth noting. I have to go back for that. But Stargate Universe just failed to do it. And I wonder what Amazon will do. Because if we're being 100% real, the Goa'uld were the best villains. The Wraith were the second best. The Ori were third. I thought they were kind of boring. Extreme fanaticism is kind of a boring, impetus behind a villain. Like, oh, it's a crazy cult. I'm like, okay. Kind of boring. And the reliance on the ancients, I was not a fan of. I like keeping them kind of mysterious and very withdrawn from the universe. They don't really care what's going on. because they managed to ascend. Or transcend, I think it is. But, you know, they don't care. It's not their deal anymore. They're just off vibing as incorporeal spirits. Sitting around being like, oh, now there's an evil group that wants to use a bomb to kill off the other ones. I'm like, I don't care. Like, there was a lot to the Gould and the Jaffa. You had, you know, there was the episode where SG-1 was sitting there giving a bunch of the, what was the rebel Jaffa, not the Tok'ra, but just the rebel group, that they were giving them a bunch of P90s. And one of the guys who he ends up betraying them, he was like, oh, well, the staffs are absolutely fine. And they prove just by shooting at a steady target that they're inaccurate and more to spread terror. And there's, you know, these cultural aspects like that, or their views on women, and all this stuff that are really interesting because it fleshes out the characters and makes the world seem more interesting. The Ori were just like, yeah, we're a cult. The end. We have creepy looking pale priest dudes. And it's like, okay, that's a concept, I guess. Not a great concept, but it's a concept. And so I'm just wondering, like, are they just gonna drudge up, like, oh, it's the secret surviving Ori, or what villain are they gonna introduce? Because there was cool stuff for, there was a MMO actually planned. Oh, I just realized this is a level 2 run that actually has the Soul Grinder. Probably shouldn't have destroyed that turret, and I wish my Thunderbolt of Authority hadn't gone off so I could hack the turrets for free and use those. Leave me alone. But they had like a group that was rogue NID guys. And oh my god. It's a lot of Ogrins. Like the whole rogue NID stuff I thought was cool. They had a group of, what was it? It was a group of Gould. I can't remember their name, but they were evil. And you could play as an SG team, or I think a Tok'ra, or just a Jaffa. But I like the idea. And of course, the problem ended up being, if you don't know the tragedy of this, is the guy who started it was like Cheyenne Mountain Studios. The guy who started it ended up leveraging the company to pay for other debts he had. And because, you know, the company didn't have anything, he ended up defaulting and the studio got closed. I'm just like, really, dude? It's always just the worst people who end up in charge of some of these things. But it was unfortunate, because that would have been a cool game. Granted, an MMO, I don't know how it would have done. You know, I feel like we've kind of tapped out when it comes to MMOs. I'm not seeing a whole lot of cool stuff here. We'll have to check it afterwards. But that it's such a problem because, like, look at the Old Republic. You know, they're like, oh, we went free to play, except you can't equip rare items unless you pay for a subscription. And you have limited access to a bunch of other stuff unless you pay for a subscription. By the way, there's our cash shop. You can either buy cosmetics or gamble with loot boxes and maybe you'll get them for cheaper. I'm like, this is terrible. If I'm going to pay for a sub, at this point, I'll just go play Final Fantasy XIV. Because at that point, I'm getting everything. Instead of this, oh, we gotta say we're free to play in the most mealy-mouthed way possible. You know, put an asterisk at the end of everything because, you know, restrictions apply, some results may vary kind of stuff. And I wonder if that's kind of the fate that Stargate game would have gone. Because Stargate, as popular as it is not that popular. Especially since people... I knew a lot of people who weren't too big on, you know, Atlantis when it started. People eventually grew to like it. I knew people who weren't big on Universe, and those people tended to just not be big on it at the end of the day because it wasn't that good. And so it's kind of the problem of, well, where do you go? Your options are limited. I don't know. I feel like there's potential, but you're banking on a lot here, and it could go bad. And now with Amazon owning the rights, I'm sitting here just like, oh god, what's Amazon gonna do? Because they don't have a good track record with games. Look at New World. New World started off fantastic, and then just fell off a cliff. Item duplication glitches, very little in terms of endgame, and people just sitting there farming certain areas to boost weapon, like, training or experience. It got bad, even early on. You know, Amazon Studios have unfortunately become the prime example of you can have all the money in the world and you can poach talent, but that doesn't mean you make a great game. I mean, a great example for a video is Nerdslayer Studios. He did a death of a game for New World, and the guy is great. Honestly, I love his work. And he even points out, they flew him specifically out, along with a bunch of other people, to play early versions. And he gave a bunch of feedback, and a lot of it wasn't listened to. Some of the staff were really impressed by some of his suggestions and stuff. And it's basic MMO, I'd say, protocol for what he was suggesting. It's stuff that's been like a morality system. How it doesn't work. That's been around since Ultima. That's before I even was playing online games. And, you know, you don't bank on that. Hell, I remember DayZ, they're like, oh, well, you get this bandit skin. People used to kill each other to get the bandit skin. They're like, oh, I look badass, let me just farm kills to get the bandit skin. So it doesn't help you unless you have a ton of punishments, and then people don't like it because then it becomes too severe. Hey, come in Lootbox Reward for completing mission. Really? Oh, inventory's full. You cannot open the loot box while having pending rewards. Well then, give me my rewards. Oh yeah, I forgot the Cabal reward. Wow. 1,000 Caligari credits. Ooh, I gotta be careful. Don't want to spend all those in one place. Spend them all in one sitting. I might break the bank. Toss that down there. And do I already have warp armor somewhere? No, I guess I'll just toss it in the list. Alright, let's see what we got. Nope. Instantly gonna toss that. Toss that. I mean, I don't really care about Thunderbolt jumping. Toss that. It's not that good, because, yeah, the poison skill, that's pointless. Pyrokinetic Staff, worse than my existing one. Warp damage bonus while exposed, definitely not worth it. Sword, don't care. Nah, it's not that good. More Thunderbolt of Authority. Huh. You know what? We'll put that on. We'll put this in the stack of stuff in the corner that may or may not be swapped back to. That gets dumpstered because poison skill. Enraged token on critical hit. Only 4 upgrades though, instead of 5. Heat vulnerability upon... yeah, poison. Again. They really want to give me poison. Bonus damage for poison effects. I guess if I could... yeah, damn. If I could somehow get something that's like, oh, if you trigger this, you cause poison, I could melt a man. Because I'm just getting tons of these boosts. Shield charge on kill. If it had the loot quantity or something, I would actually take that. Even though it was 69, nice. Shield charge gained on kill is nothing. That is... these numbers need to go up. I'd say 100 minimum. Even though, yes, that is a lot. It's not that much. Considering if I take a hit, I can get melted. When in an enraged state, enemies within 5 meters are feared. I mean, if it weren't for the fact I have to keep my purity seal for the token gen, that would actually be pretty useful. Crap. More warp vulnerability. I'd have to build for warp. Otherwise, yeah, that'd be kind of cool. The Thunderbolt of Authority thing is kind of moot. But the 5 slots, I could get the Psalm code, the Psalm Doctrines, and probably make something pretty wild. But that's useless. Aimed in sniper skills, I don't have aimed in sniper skills. I swing stick. That's not bad, 110% damage for burning effects. I do a lot of burning effects. Sword, not worth it. Don't care. Yeah, especially one-hit kills cause an explosion. God, they loaded me up with a bunch of crap, honestly. But it's whatever. I need the Archaeotech parts. Even though I have 110, I'm always very paranoid. I, like many gamers, like to hoard everything possible, just in case I might need it, and then once I reach the end of the game go, oh, see, I didn't need any of that at all. Even though I potentially struggled to get where I need to be. We have such strange mannerisms, don't you think? You know, habitual hoarding of items, even though you never... no situation ever seems dire enough to actually necessitate them. Like, the only time I can think of that I was like, oh, I should use these items, was Skyrim. which is usually everybody's hoarding game, but exclusively healing potions. Because I didn't like how the quick menu was, because you had to hit up, and then it would bring up a little menu in the corner, and you had to scroll to pick what you wanted, and I didn't like that, because I didn't like being taken out of the fight. Quite literally, that was the only problem I had, and so I'd sit there and just load the game up with other stuff, and be like, okay, this is what I need. Hang on, these are all... okay, one level above. Yeah, we'll just do a purge, and... you... And yeah, we'll go another second level, because that last one gave me an actual boss fight, which is pretty neato.
The enemy is here, preying on the weak and using craven tricks against the defenders of mankind. Perhaps we should find their leaders and give them a fair share of their own medicine.
Man, just trying to think what they could do with Stargate. The thing I would like to see, just to bring back the Gould more, would be to sit down and be like, oh, hey, the Tok'ra collapsed due to infighting, and some of the hiding Gould came back, or not all of them were killed, some lost body doubles. Like, yeah, Ball is dead, and some of those guys, but... you could do that. It would be cheap, and I admit I might get a bit butthurt. But even like, oh, there's clones. But that's a real gamble, if we're being real. Because that's... it's bad writing. You know... I mean, that's something even covered in like D&D. Don't use clones or the spells that bring people back to life as a very, like, blasé, just, oh yeah, you didn't actually kill them kind of thing, because it diminishes the successes of the player, or in this case, it would eliminate seasons of effort and progress and character development. Well, the character development would happen nonetheless, but it would invalidate a ton of stuff, and that is a problem. Because fans will interpret that as just trying to take away from the previous people's work. And I do agree, it does come off as that. I just really liked, if you watch the early seasons, like, Apophis, when he's on, I can't remember the world's name specifically, but, Sokar's world. It's so cool, because it was essentially hell. And so he had Jaffa from all these different groups and all these different lords. And what would happen is they would just essentially like repaint their armor to be red. So you had some of Apophis's guards. The lore kind of goes into like, oh yeah, there's ones for almost everybody. As long as they're, you know, captured, they end up there. And it was so cool to me. And I love the look of them, because a lot of the times these guys just didn't have a headpiece up, so it was just everybody looking kind of the same. I think it was you or Amaterasu or somebody had ninjas, which didn't really look like ninjas, which was a little disappointing, because yeah, how can you tell me there's ninja aliens and then not make them look like ninjas? Even though, if we're gonna be needlessly pedantic about it, ninja wasn't really a thing. It was shinobi, and the stereotypical all-black, kind of borderline bodysuit look was never really a thing. So I understand to a degree if you're not willing to kind of cater to that, I'd say, generic view of the ninja, but it is the most commonly understood interpretation. And so you kind of have to, or at least have some traits, so that people understand, oh, that's what it is, instead of just guy with sword. Hell, if it's Japanese themed, people will probably mistake it for a samurai. I mean, what sucks is there's other characters that would be cool, but they're said to be dead, like Cronus. And... God, I'm trying to think who else. I think Balor is dead. But, you know, all the cool old gods who... You know, you could have, like, oh, their Jaffa armor, the head is, like, a cyclops or something neat looking, but you can't really do it because these characters are dead, and, you know, like I said, cloning, kind of a cheap method of bringing characters back. The best you could do is have what ones haven't been shown or what ones aren't confirmed dead to come back. But then again, you could honestly just BS it saying rogue NID agents did something. Because they're causing problems everywhere, it seems. That's something I do appreciate too, is the fact that it wasn't like, oh, humanity is a monolith that all works together. No, the NID was just like, yeah, screw these guys, we're gonna steal tech, sell people out, do unethical programs, humanity first. Humanity number one, baby! Like, I love that. Because it adds a believable thing to it. You think people aren't going to have differing views on how we interact with aliens? I can guarantee people are going to do some messed up stuff. I remember seeing a tweet where this guy's like, yeah, I'll be honest, if aliens landed, me and my friends probably would have beat them to death with hammers. And one, I laughed, and two, I was like, that's a real approach. Some people are just gonna lose it. Not everybody's up to date and like, oh cool, aliens, I must say hello and try to get peace. No, some people will be like, it looks different, kill it. And it happens. I mean, hell, how many times has that happened in human history? Their skin's lighter or darker, kill them, they're a monster. It's like, no, they're just somebody from elsewhere. I saw some people saying that depending on how this new Amazon Lord of the Rings goes, it might have the possibility of kind of just absolutely gutting people's interest in fantasy, which, I mean, maybe? I think the big thing is we wouldn't have any legacy fantasy stuff to fall back on. I mean, what's the last fantasy IP people have been really interested in? Witcher? Let's be real here. If it weren't for Henry Cavill, Witcher would have been terrible. And that's because he's a colossal nerd who knows the lore. And what the director... I had mentioned this before, the director listened. They had instances where they're like, hey, let's do this. And Cavill's like, no, Geralt wouldn't act like that. If we reference this and this, this is how it would likely go down. And the director, God bless that director. Because they're like, oh yeah, you know what, you're right. And actually listen to him. But short of that, we don't really have any other fantasy IPs left. Harry Potter is... Ugh, I'm so tired of it. Mostly because every TV channel is like, hey, guess what? It's another marathon! I'm like, please, stop. This is the 6th marathon this month. I'm tired of it. Or you have J.K. Rowling who can't stop just saying stuff. You know, I get it. You can say what you want. Free speech. Everybody's an island. They can be an island. They can do what they want. But damn. At a certain point, you gotta look at it and be like, okay, everything I say seems to just make people angry. Perhaps I should just ease up for a bit. You know, let this kind of simmer down. But of course, some people just read too much into it, saying goblins are Jewish stereotypes. Which I was like, okay, I guess you can interpret it that way. That's a little extreme in my eyes, but Sure. Bit weird you saw the goblins and thought Jewish people, but who am I to judge? But so, yeah, like, there's just not a lot of fantasy left. Lord of the Rings was kind of our last thing. What was it, Discworld? They tried doing a series on, and it flopped. I remember here, or was it Wheel of Time? Isn't that Discworld? I don't remember. But I just remember people were like, oh yeah, it came out and it sucked, and I sat there confused, because like, it came out? I didn't even hear about it. So, part of me hopes, we might get a kind of revival of science fiction, but at the same time, stuff like Star Wars has screwed up. Stuff like 40K has had mixed responses with some of the community. Battletech recently, the current IP owners booted a writer because the short version is the guy was being stalked by someone, and they essentially rigged up a campaign against them because the person had differing political ideologies, and they kept saying like, oh, you can read it in their work, and even the people at the company were like, yeah, we can't see that stuff bleeding through here. And so like they let it alone, and then the person just kept going, and eventually people at the company were just like, look, we're just gonna drop you, dude. We're sick of this. And so now you have Battletech fans who are pissed. Rightfully so, Let writers have their opinions on things. As long as they're not pushing those within the product, I don't care. If you make good stuff, I don't care what you believe. That was strange. But some people don't agree to that. Weird, I know. But yeah, like, even sci-fi, like, Star Wars, God. It's so sad, though, because Star Wars are like, oh, well, we learned that people don't want stories using old characters anymore. I'm like, no, people like old characters. We don't like bad writing. This can be said anywhere. If your writing sucks, your writing sucks. You can have the most likable characters, but if it's just bad writing, it's not gonna save them.
You've set a fine example for their kind, Inquisitor.
Yeah, it could go bad. But I mean, that can be said about anything. Anything can go wrong. And it is a pessimistic view. I understand that. It's just, you get so many bad times with these things, and IP owners who don't care. Look at Rocky. They're trying to make a Ivan Drago movie. And Stallone is just like, let the franchise end. The producer or whatever is 94. And his family, they're just trying to milk money out of it. And it's like, it ended well. It doesn't need more movies. And honestly, at a certain point, people stop caring. You're gonna make less and less on your projects, and you're just gonna hurt your IP even further. It's like Rambo. How many people care about Rambo anymore?
Remarkable. A soul-bound...
It's a product of its time. There's a lot of people who have grown up never seeing things from the 80s. Why do you think Stranger Things looks the way it does? It has some of the things right from the 80s, based on what I've heard, and a lot of it is kind of an idealized, this is what the 80s is like to someone who never experienced the 80s. It's like, I think Taco Bell used to have all brown interiors back then. Like, all wood. I'm like, what the hell? I'm used to 90s Taco Bell. You know, everything's white with that kind of darker teal and purple and weird kind of spray squiggles. I'm used to that. I don't like new Taco Bell. The look, at least. The food is garbage, but I still eat it because I'm a trash human being who will consume anything. The Baja Blast has control of me. Greens and purples. Purple, green, green, green. Knew it. Hey, new inoculator thing I'm not going to use. Let's check the loot. Move that down here for the next, for my new or my other characters. Ooh, that damage bonus on bleeding effects, though. It is all bleeding bonuses. Oh, that's actually really good. Okay, so that, we might be keeping this neural implant of trauma for a while. Otherwise, I was gonna say, hey, enrage token on critical hit, heat vulnerability on burning skill hit, slow on vulnerability skill hit. We might be able to make something work on that. But, ooh, that implant is looking real good. Don't care, don't care. Chance to automatically... I don't know if I stun anybody, though. Because that's not bad. A 50% chance to shock. Damage bonus per enraged token. It's not that good, though, unfortunately. Otherwise, yeah, that'd be another great one. Crap, time dilation armor. Oh, that's really crap. Not bad. I mean, it's only 4 effects, and I'd rather get 5 on everything. I know that's kind of a little lame thing to be concerned about, but it is additional effects, it is additional bonuses. That is very important. I'm not even considering the loot quality bonus, even though that is a big thing. Otherwise, yeah, that energy shield damage is reflected to attacker. Considering I can almost at will give myself energy shields, that's useful. But it's not that good. Berserk State, don't have it. Don't care, it's dealing with Surrounded. I don't care at all about my suppression levels. Chance to cause bleeding in Berserk State, additional remove Berserk token every... I need Berserk tokens to do it, and I don't have Berserk tokens. So that was a bit of a wash, but in the end, still fine. Could have been better, could have been far worse, so I'll take it. But that is all for now. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit the like button, it helps out the channel a lot, and if you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.